Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studio in Atlanta, Georgia. It's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by Kennesaw State University's Executive MBA program, the accelerated degree program for working professionals looking to advance their career and enhance their leadership skills. And now, here's your host.
Lee Kantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get started, it's important to recognize our sponsor, KSU's Executive MBA program. Without them, we couldn't be sharing these important stories. Today on the show, we have Harry Rao. He is the CEO and founder of TestGrid. Welcome.
Thank you, Lee.
So excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us about TestGrid. How are you serving folks?
So TestGrid is a test platform. For example, if you're building mobile applications or web browser applications, Lee, we provide like test infrastructure and AI on top to speed up the process of software delivery.
So if someone's not using TestGrid, how are they going about it?
Manual process. Like completely, they're like, imagine you're just, if you're releasing your Facebook application, right? You have to go manually test Facebook on like different versions of iOS or Android or web and all that. So if they're using something like TestGrid, it's all automated.
So what was the genesis of the idea? When did you know that you had to work on something like this to solve this problem?
Yeah, it goes back to 10 years, Lee, when, more than that, actually, when iPhone came out and things of that sort, as the adoption of smart mobile operating system started, building it at scale that we need and the speed at which we need was what was important for us. So as I was working other jobs or as a consultant, I figured out that, something of this sort at a cost-efficient way so that you could reduce the cost of utilization or creation of software and increase the speed. So that's how we started using more of these auto delivery agents.
Now, when it was in this idea stage, how did you kind of launch it? Was this something you bootstrapped or were you able to get funding?
I tried to get funding, Lee, but unfortunately, the concept was too good to be true at that point in time, right? So I ended up bootstrapping it. So today we are absolutely bootstrapped, and that's been the greatest decision of my life.
So any advice for other kind of developers out there that are working on the next big idea, kind of maybe the pros and cons of bootstrapping or some of the learnings you had from bootstrapping to the scale that you have today?
Absolutely, Lee. Like everything, bootstrapping has its advantages as well as disadvantages, but I'm going to focus on the advantages, right? When you're bootstrapping, you have to be really, really frugal in where you spend your money, right? So with that comes focus, right? You have to make sure what you're choosing has to work. So you cannot go around and start making wrong decisions, right? So, but also that brings about, like I said, the focus and the grit to success increases with that kind of a decision. That's my personal experience, Lee. But, of course, having a VC or external funding does give you certain flexibility. But when you are in you're in a longer time journey, you have to choose it wisely and spend the dollars wisely. You will have the flexibility of moving around and navigating the waters as you want, rather than when you take the external funding. So those are the advantages of bootstrapping, and you are answerable to yourself, and you're true to yourself and your team. Right? So you can go to sleep happily, in my opinion.
So now, when you were launching, though, how did you kind of get the software in the hands of, your potential customers without, kind of having the track record of something? And like you said, it was too good to be true in some manners. How do you get those first customers to even try it?
You need to knock on the doors, make sure they believe. You have to be persistent in chasing some of these decision makers. Like you said, if you're nobody, they're not gonna even listen to you. But eventually, if you're persistent, people will start listening. You might lose first few of your prospects or customers, Lee, but if the story is good and it's authentic, people are ready to partner with you. It's been my story, Lee. So, yep. Just be persistent and have the grit and be authentic with your story. You'll definitely, you don't have to have a story behind you.
So how do you create those first initial deals that get you the escape velocity you need to get to the new level? Like, how do you negotiate those first deals with the guinea pigs?
Absolutely. I wouldn't call them guinea pigs because if my people are listening, they'll be sad about it. But I would call them your friendlies. In what we call them, Lee, are sort of friendlies, right? Like you know these people from past, you know their pain, they have traveled with you, right? So when you're doing that, these guys will give you their time, and they will give you a chance, but make sure you don't blow it up, right? Usually you should choose 4 or 5, niche down to one particular problem. Don't try to solve everything, Lee, right? And again, I'm guilty of that mistake. First couple of years, I tried to be everything for everybody, never works. Then I said, like, okay, I'm only going to be focused on this particular problem. I'm going to go deeper and I'm going to solve that. And that pans out really, really well. And when you are talking to these friendlies who gave you that opportunity, they will make sure you go to, you can, go to the next step, so-called procurement, like you were talking. Now, pricing is still up in the air. If it's your first time in the product, look what outside people are doing, right? Like they're probably competition. You're never alone in the space, especially in the enterprise software testing space, right? Look what others are doing. How can you bring more efficiency? Talk to your prospects. How can you solve their problem? They all want to, rather than giving them a tool, and what is the price they're willing to pay.
So how do you kind of negotiate those beginning prices? How do you what's the back and forth that happens so that, that you're getting some revenue if possible, and you're also getting some sort of a recommendation if possible, so that if they are getting a good price, that they are at least recommending you to others? Like, how do you structure those beginning deals? Because those can make or break your service.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those are very interesting. Especially let me talk on the B2B space, Lee. The beginning deals are pretty much like, in my case, I'll just talk about my case, right? We had some competition in space, in our space. When we had that, let's say they were at, lack of a better example, let's say they were at $1 million, right? We were like, okay, how much can I get? Again, we were newbies in the space, right? It's not race to the bottom, but it's always, can I get you 10x returns on if you switch to me, right? So from what you're doing today, it's 10x efficiency. There's a very good book from Amazon's, leadership called Working Backwards. And one of their leadership principles is, or taking a new product to the market is, if I don't bring 10x returns to my customer, I'm not in business, because they're not going to switch to you, not going to adapt, because there's cost of switching a software or anything, right? So 10x means 10x efficiency and 10x price. So if at $1 million, you should at least bring them that 10x cost of like $100,000 or in that ballpark. You're saving huge and also giving them more. So that's when. So this is the thing you do with the technical leadership or all. And then once you go into the procurement, they're going to still, compare, do benchmarking with the people around in the industry. It's like, you stand here, we stand here, then also a little bit of negotiating aroundly, but it's usually those kind of scenarios.
So now, when you were growing, how did you go about building your team? Because that's also one of those points of inflection that you got to get right.
Absolutely. So that's the other thing, right? In bootstrapping, you are playing it by month to quarter in the early days, Lee. So building your team is also, it's one important thing is you need to have your core team for the long run, right? So whoever you choose, they should be here with you, not for the next year, but for the next decade, right? If you're building something that long term and a good vision, that those are the kind of people you need to have. So that trust, before you tell them figuring out, as well as going back to building the team is like those are kind of questions you as an entrepreneur need to ask and have a put the expectations out there with your team, as well as again you hire them, like they say, there's a common saying which I'm not a fan of, but hire slow, fire fast. I don't believe in firing fast, but I'm definite believer in hiring slowly, right? Because it's day before you get married, sort of, especially when you're bringing somebody to the core team. So those kind of principles are what I follow. And going back to the numbers, again, make sure you do your math quarter to quarter, because you should pay your team before you get paid. So that is another important thing in bootstrapping principles, right? So those kind of things, Lee.
Now, when you're working with a team, and I'm sure your team is all over the place, how do you kind of keep the engagement strong when there are a lot of remote workers in a variety of time zones?
Oh God. Yeah, we have teams all across the globe today. How do I keep them all in good communication would be, how would I say it? Thanks to technology, Lee, like, right? So we are all always on chat. We are on like, phone groups like WhatsApp or, Zoom calls, Teams groups. There are multiple ways, but usually there is a process I set for myself and my leadership. And again, they manage their remote teams if there are any under, but most of my dev is centrally located, Lee. So I believe like, dev has to happen centrally. My marketing is remote distributed, but daily stand-ups, consistent communication. And here is a very simple principle I live by. Don't text, call. If you have some problem or something that you need, if that person is on other call, he'll hang up, then leave him a message, but lead with a call. So that's one of the major principles I live by, and I make sure my team goes by that, is like call. Even I make sure my leadership calls me. If I'm busy, I say, okay, leave me a message, but lead with the call.
Now, let's get into your product for a second. Talk about AI. Obviously, that's it's everywhere nowadays. But how is that impacting what you're doing, and is that making it more efficient and faster for your customers now? I'm sure you're kind of leaning into AI, but maybe you're helping in ways that they're not anticipating.
Absolutely, Lee. I mean, AI is amazing, right? In my, yeah, as far as I truly believe in it, and we are leading with it. It's going to bring huge efficiency, and for us, we are already leading it with it too in testing space, Lee. We have a product called Co-Tester. So it's like your AI testing agent that sits with you, that learns with you, like a real tester, right? And it writes your automation test cases, gives you the results that you want. It's just increasing the velocity of, entire AI space. If I have to talk about, it's just increasing the velocity of the amount of products we can create, and we are all after, the bigger problems we always wanted to solve. So that's my take on AI, Lee. And we are leading with it with Core Tester.
Now, in your company today, are your clients the same as they were when you started, or now you penetrating kind of the Fortune 500, the Fortune 100s?
Absolutely. So my clientele is okay. To answer your question, I always targeted the Fortune 100 to 500 to begin with, Lee. But it's hard. It's like you were talking in the beginning of this call, right? Like the procurement, like how do they believe you? You are, you don't have the backing. No, you just bootstrap, these kind of problems, right? But fast forward today, we have at least 20 of the Fortune 100 as my customers, and my clientele is only, Fortune 500 to Fortune 1000. Lee. That's how deep they need our kind of product and services, right? So, how is it changed from where we were, but the adoption has accelerated. We led with it. We never, I wouldn't say we never, we tried to target the SMB space and all, but again, we wanted to satisfy a fewer customers and keep them happy and solve their problem perfect. So we had to pivot towards this and rather than going into the SMB space early.
So what have you learned? What advice can you give to folks out there listening when it comes to penetrating the Fortune 100s of the world? What do they demand from their tech partners that you learned?
Absolutely, Lee. So what I learned is if you're switching from an SMB space or all, we call it that dopamine effect, right? Like, once you close a deal, you get that rush. That's very, very slow in enterprise. The sales cycle is like 6 to 9 months on a bad day, on a good day, sorry, right? On a bad day, it can be a couple of years. So you're consistently working with them, working the procurement cycle. You have to be very patient, very thorough because you're going into a Fortune 100 company. Your security has to be top notch. Your entire team has to be like, it has to be run tight, right? So no stone unturned. That's how it works with the enterprise. So patience, solve deeper technical problems that they want. Price is never the issue, but always keep it efficient so that they get their 10x returns. These are sort of principles I live by, especially, and I would advise any future entrepreneurs when they are chasing a Fortune 100. And don't give up. They always are very welcoming as long as you solve their problem. Stay at it, solve the problem, but make sure it's the best product out there.
So what's next? Anything that you can share on the roadmap? Any events or any products or services that are new or that we should know about?
Absolutely, Lee. Going back to our discussion on AI, right? We are launching something called as our next version, the 2.0 version of Code Tester, where we learned a lot of stuff from our existing enterprise customers. And again, it's more towards the enterprise. So we are launching that. It's enterprises, again, to the future entrepreneurs, right? They don't like transformation, right? They like incremental releases, and that's what we were trying to do. It's like they have their legacy scripts, going back to the world of when, Lee, going back to the before SaaS came in, right? There were Windows desktop applications or thick clients. SaaS came in. SaaS was like it's a migration cost. There is so much to it. Now comes AI. AI platform as a service is a whole different beast, but enterprises have legacy. They have to move slow. There needs to be more support, and we need to make their life easier to adopt or adapt the AI side of things, right? So for that is what we try to create this co-tester 2.0, which will help them move away from the legacy, but in an incremental fashion and future-proof them. So that's what's coming, and we are very excited about that, Lee.
So if somebody wants to learn more, have a more substantive conversation with somebody on the team, what is the website? What's the best way to connect?
TestGrid.io. Simple, just follow us on LinkedIn. That's the best way. My team is always there. Or just drop an email at info@testgrid.io. Lee.
Well, Harry, thank you so much for sharing your story today. You're doing such important work, and we appreciate you.
Absolutely. It's great having, thank you for having me on the show, Lee, and I'm very excited.
All right, this is Lee Kantor. We'll see you all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.